Well, hello and welcome back to the Finding Traction podcast. And I wanted to kind of call this podcast How You Been? And I'm mostly just going to talk. I don't really have a lot of notes here, but it has to do with some thinking I've done around connecting with guys that I haven't talked to for a chunk of time and some of the thoughts I have around that. Now, I've mentioned in a previous podcast that I coach guys and that I work with guys on a Saturday morning basis for got to be 12, 13, 14 years. And every Saturday morning, 7:30 without fail for an hour, a little over an hour, we would get together, in person, and we'd walk through our struggles, our marriage struggles, our struggles around sexual addiction. And we would develop a camaraderie, a band of brothers, so to speak. And we would essentially look to find healing and freedom in our journey. And again, I did that for over 10 years. It's got to be closer to 15 years. And I never really had a problem doing it. I never had to motivate myself because it was exciting to see the changes that would happen in guys' lives. It was obviously an issue that meant so much to me. And again, it never was a chore or a burden to get out of bed. And so I loved it. And it's kind of where I developed, I guess, my chops around working with guys. When you work with that many guys over that period of time, there's not much you don't hear. You hear all sorts of stories, all sorts of things that are happening as people have struggled with sexual addictions and problems in marriages, or, whether they're still married, or single guys, or people who are struggling with a whole host of different things that have come out of control behaviors. And so last year when COVID hit, and then I also transitioned in terms of my focus from working full-time at a church to now working a lot more in coaching, I just felt like, it is a good time to end that Saturday morning group. And, we weren't allowed to meet in person anyways. And I really wanted to shift my focus. And so we did that. We ended that Saturday morning group, and it was kind of weird after all of those years to be Saturday morning at 7:30 and, have no group to go to. It was weird. It was like, oh, I got my whole Saturday. Now I'd be home by 9:00 anyways, but still it was strange to not have your Saturday morning group to go to. And I probably had a few hundred guys that over those years would come and go in the group. Some guys they used to joke that they were lifers. They would be there without fail almost every week. Other guys would come for, a few months, or sometimes people would come just for a couple sessions and they wouldn't stay for a variety of reasons. Some of them because they felt like, gee, I don't really want to do the hard work. Other guys would go, man, you guys are really messed up. Well, they never said that. They probably thought that. But we had probably, a couple hundred guys that I got to meet and know. And again, you hear all sorts of stories. And it was an incredibly rewarding time of my life. And so in moving now to coaching for a living, and now I also do some teaching and other things. But in terms of coaching, I felt like it was a good time to transition anyways. I also found, to be honest, that some guys that really didn't have any skin in the game, that means they didn't have to pay anything. They would come and go, and it didn't really matter to them. But if you were actually valuing something enough to put some money into it, it really changed the calculus a whole lot in what guys were willing to invest. And so in this transition, I work with guys. Most of my coaching is Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I try to keep it focused on those days so that I can do some writing on other days, and I can do some teaching when that's available. But I've run into a bit of a problem, and the problem has been just the typical thing that a lot of guys work Monday to Friday. And also we're dealing with time zone changes. We're on the West Coast here, so it's 3 hours later there. And so we've had challenges. I've got, I think, 3 or 4 groups going right now, but we've had challenges actually finding time on Monday to Friday. So it kind of got me thinking, okay, I want to connect again with a Saturday morning group. And because Saturday is a time where the Monday to Friday guys obviously would have available if we did it first thing in the morning. But it got me thinking, I wonder how many of the guys that I've connected with are doing after we've stopped doing this Saturday morning group. And so I've been going through my, my phone list and going through some of those people that were part of our Saturday morning group and others on a mailing list. And I've just been asking this question, how you doing? How you been? And it's interesting because I am not really that interested in creating this great dependency on me. I mean, I couldn't care less if you're connected with me or SA or another great group. That is not, my issue. I don't take it personally. The other thing is, I do, recognize that I don't want people to feel like, if I don't have if I don't have this group, I'm completely sunk. You're afraid almost that there's going to be an over-reliance on me or a group, and, that becomes an unhealthy thing. Can there be too many groups? Having said that, this is kind of what I'm starting to gather. Some of the guys that have stopped being in the group, they're doing okay, or they say they're doing okay. And you know what? That's cool. That's great. I'm glad they're doing okay. Other guys, which I think would reflect me more than anything, they're not doing okay. And, sure, they probably like the fact that they have their Saturday mornings free. But you know what? Stopping being in community has now left them really vulnerable. And, some things have been happening in their life. And I was thinking about a word picture that could kind of encapsulate this. And I thought of this horrible picture of cancer. And, I've had some good friends who've died of cancer. I've been with people, in the hospital. I mean, it's a horrible disease. It's almost like it eats you away from the inside. And on top of that, it's almost like sometimes the cure, the attempted cures or the cures that people use, sometimes it almost feels like they're worse than, the cancer itself. So people who've gone through chemotherapy or radiation or surgery, surgery is probably the clearest of the least invasive almost when you deal with some of the effects of chemo and radiation. But, they're horrible treatments, so to speak, to partly deal with an even more horrible disease. And of course, I'm making the comparison to our out of control sexual addictions. And, one of the questions are, when people find, for example, or a tumor is discovered, the very first thing, the desperate patient wants to know is this question: is this a benign tumor or is this a malignant tumor? Is this, by benign, I mean it's not growing, it's not affecting the surrounding tissue. I'm not an oncologist, but, I think I know a few things just from normal information out there. But if it's malignant, that means then that the tumor is beginning to affect the healthy cells around that, and it's growing and it's spreading. Now, of course, the next thing that happens with cancer is, the next thing they look for, how far has it spread? Is it still in that localized area, or has it spread, for example, to, your lymph nodes? And in your lymph nodes, then, of course, it just begins to spread throughout your whole body. Many people who started with lung cancer, for example, then it can spread to the brain. Again, it's a horrific example, and we've probably all known people that have, experienced this horrific journey. But I, without trying to be melodramatic here, my experience of guys who really truly struggle like I have with an addiction, just saying, you know what, I'm going to stay away from the doctor. And I know you've said I have cancer, but I'm just not going to deal with it. And if you have a malignant tumor, just going to the doctor doesn't do you any good. It doesn't stop the continual spread of the cancer. And so many guys that I know, and some of the people that I'm talking to now, and they go, you know what, I actually am not doing well. What's happened is, now that I haven't had this caring camaraderie of other guys that I can walk with and journey with, what's happening is this malignant tumor has grown. It has spread to my lymph nodes. It has begun to affect other what were healthy areas of my life. It could be other relationships. It could be my job. It could be, my thinking. It could be, and now the cancer is throughout my whole body. My sexual addiction is affecting so many areas in my life. I can't hide it anymore. It's caused negative effects in increasing parts of my life. And I want to just say, you know what? I think that is a wake-up call. That's a scary thing. I've used other examples of almost like being a diabetic. For me, I'm not a diabetic, but I view, for me, the steps of recovery, like being in connected groups and walking and journeying with guys, as an insulin. I need my daily insulin. I need my weekly insulin. And in these COVID times where so many of those support structures were taken away from us or not available to us, many of us are not doing well. And so, I've found in this journey that we're never just staying in one place. Either we're moving forward, and it's the whole finding traction example, or as soon as we stall, it's almost like we're trying to go up a hill. As soon as we lose momentum, then the gravity and the force begins to pull us back. And so I want to just encourage you guys, if you have been out of community, if you have, in one sense, taken your foot off the gas pedal, hoping that, you know what, I think I'm okay now. I think I've got this. I think I'm going to be okay from now on. Now that I got a good push and I've got some momentum. But you are, when you're honest with yourself and go, you know what, I'm not doing well. The equilibrium is gone from my life. And now I feel like I'm going backwards at a faster and faster pace. I want to really challenge you to really be honest with yourself and really say, you know what, I've got to get back into the things that got me to where I'm at. I've done some work with people who struggle with mental illness, and there are certain forms of mental illness that are incredibly insidious because it affects our thinking. And one of the challenges with people who work, in certain forms of mental illness is they say to people, you need to take your medication. And they almost have to convince the person they need their medication. Well, what happens as soon as people start taking their medication, they begin to feel better. And then because they begin to feel better, they tell themselves that they no longer need their medication. And before you know, they stop their medication and they begin the same old spiral that got them into the challenges in the first place. Again, I am not for creating just dependence in your life in terms of a group or, I wish we could all stand on our own, but I can't. And I think many of you can't either. And so maybe this is just a chance for you to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I've got to get back into doing some of these same things that got me to a good place. If you're no longer in a good place, I would encourage you to reach out. I have a new email. It's bandofbrothers.care@gmail.com. And, we're right now June 7th, 2021. And hard to believe we've already got to June here. But we're starting a Saturday morning group again. It's 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we're going to be connecting guys together. We're going to be doing from different time zones, but we're doing it over Zoom. So maybe that's an option you can look at. But again, I want to just challenge you to not fool yourself if you're not doing well. And now is a chance for you to go back to your oncologist, so to speak, and say, you know what, something's going on in my body here, and this needs to be dealt with. So till next time, God bless you. It's great to hang out with you. And I just want to encourage you to do a good medical checkup as we move forward. God bless you.